Good afternoon, Tobago. Good afternoon, those who are joining us from further afield. This is the Office of the Chief Secretary, and today we completed our first Tobago Security Council meeting a short while ago, and we are about to engage in a mini town hall with stakeholders from the tourism sector. I stress on the word mini because we are not going to be our usual length of time for our town hall. You know, those town hall meetings we had went in excess of 2 hours. So this, we are looking at perhaps a maximum of about 30 minutes. We are particularly targeting those within the tourism sector because, as you would be aware, we entered a state of emergency recently, and we had some concerns being raised from those in the tourism sector, particularly that you were experiencing cancellations and you were having difficulties in marketing your product because of safety concerns from our international partners, especially from our source markets that have been putting out releases guarding their citizens about their travel and their experience in Tobago and in Trinidad as well. And so today at our Security Council meeting, of course, we discussed in depth what the security situations are at present in Tobago. And of course, you will get an update shortly. But we looked specifically at how do we assist those of you in the tourism sector in ensuring that you are able to keep plying your trade successfully, and that the economy in Tobago, our third largest productive sector, the tourism sector, and our second largest employer on the island, the tourism sector, is not adversely affected by the state of emergency, which is considered needed by the central government at this time. Allow me to recognize Deputy Chief Secretary Dr. Faith Baiswell, who sat in the meeting with us, the Secretary of Tourism, Secretary, Councillor Dr. I give it a doctorate, but I guess you'll get there soon, but Councillor Tashia Boris, Chief Administrator Denise Toby Kwashi, ACP Subero, who is on my left. We have Senior Superintendent Eli, a Tobago boy, I might add, from Mason Hall. We also have Captain McKenna from the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, from the Defense Force particularly. We had from the Fire Service here in Tobago, we have Marlon Charles. We also have had present with us Head of CID Tobago, Inspector Mahalia Bacchus, Staff Sergeant Carter, also from the regiment, and we had Sergeant Rowley from the Coast Guard present. And now joining us in this larger conversation, we also had with us, Director at TEMA, Mr. Alan Stewart. Everybody know Mr. Alan Stewart, quite ubiquitous here in Tobago. And we have joining us now for this larger conversation that we are telegraphing to you, so that if you are in the tourism sector and you have concerns, we are seeking to allay your fears through this mini engagement, this mini town hall. We have with us Mr. Ken Jones, who is responsible for security at the Chamber of Commerce, and that's the Tobago Chamber, Mr. Jones. We also have from the Tobago Chamber with responsibility for tourism, Mr. Brendan Gray. And of course, we have from the Chamber, the Chair of the Chamber in Tobago, Mr. Curtis Williams. We have from the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, Mrs. Maria Yip John. So she's here from the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, and I believe she might have been delegated by Mr. Lord as well. We have from the Tobago Hospitality and Tour Operators, we had Mr. Ted Gregg. We have from our Tital Marketing Rep here, Mr. Jason Antoine, so he would bring to bear on the conversation what we might be experiencing right now in terms of challenges marketing the space. And we also have the acting CEO at TTAL, Mrs. Sandra or Tony, also present in the room. And what's going to happen is that we are going to field questions from you, the stakeholders, so that we can not just allay your fears by telling you have nothing to worry about, but so that we can actually give you real answers about some of the concerns that you have. But before we have those questions from you, I wish to first ask the Secretary of Tourism to perhaps just encapsulate for us briefly some of the things that we are seeing in the space, some of the challenges that we have had, and how we are seeking to mitigate against those challenges. After Secretary Boris, I'll ask Senior Superintendent Eli, on behalf of the TTPS, to more or less encapsulate how last year went. And I think we all know how last year went. We look at how last year went, look at where we're at, but more than that, to share with you some of the positive steps that the TTPS is taking to ensure that you are safe and that your visitors and your clients are safe. I want to be very clear from the jump that the Tobago House of Assembly, and by extension the national security apparatus that operates in Tobago, we are not putting measures in place just because we want the tourists to be safe. Let me be clear. This is about making all of us safe. Because when we are safe, you, the visitor, is safe. So in other words, when we are safe, you are safe. So the idea is we make the residents of Tobago feel safe and the property of the residents of Tobago secured. Once that happens, we are confident that our visitor within our gates are safe. So it's about making us safe. When we're safe, then you're going to be okay. Everybody going to be okay. And we're free to invite anybody in the space because we know we are safe. Right? When our children are safe, then our visitors are safe as well. So Secretary Boris, we hear from you first, briefly, and then we hear from Senior Superintendent Eli.
Thank you, Chief Secretary, and good afternoon to all of our stakeholders. Thank you for accepting the invitation to have this conversation, a very important conversation at this time, because 2024 has been, what should I say, a challenging year for the tourism sector. We had the beginning of the year, we had that experience with the oil spill that took place, that took about 4 months to get that under control and clean up the shores and the negative fallout that came from that. And then we went into the shark attack incident in April. And then we didn't end off the year the way that I wanted to, because we had the state of emergency declared on December 30th of 2024. So Happy New Year, and I hope that the New Year certainly turns around for us. Based on the experiences that we have had to institute some mechanisms with respect to tourism crisis management and being able to become very proactive about treating with crisis. Now, nobody anticipated that we would have 3 major incidents in 1 year, but I think that we're at the place where we have already decided that we have to take a very, very strong and proactive approach to how Tobago responds to the reality of what we face, which is the declaration of a state of emergency for Trinidad and Tobago. And also coming on the heels of that, 3 negative travel advisories being issued by the US, UK, and Canada. The reality is that we are part of a twin island nation, and what affects Trinidad affects Tobago. So that even though we have begun communicating with our partners, the fact that Tobago is still safe, still clean, still here for persons to enjoy, still unspoiled, untouched, undiscovered, we have our doors open to all of our visitors to still come and enjoy everything that Tobago has to offer. We know that the reality of what we face is that some persons are going to look at what has been broadcasted so far, see the negative in that, and then there's going to be a fallout. And I understand that there already has been fallout. So that coming on the heels of the announcement of the SOE, we did go out immediately to our partners to say to them, look, Tobago is still, we still have our doors open. There are some things that you should expect as a result of the declaration, but by and large, Tobago still remains a very safe and welcoming destination for our visitors. Coming out of the conversation that we had this morning, understanding that tourism is our largest sector that can be impacted negatively by the presence of a state of emergency declaration. There was a conversation surrounding how we're going to communicate to our visitors, those who are here on island, those who are thinking about coming, and even those who have decided they will not come at this time. How do we get them to still come back, regardless of what is happening in this space? In addition to that, we also discussed the types of interventions that we would have to make at different levels, some of the systems that we have to put in place to ensure that at least we, while the national security apparatus is doing their work with respect to the safety of residents and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, that we are also adding an additional layer of care for our visitors. Some of the systems that we have talked about is the institution of a visitor relations unit at the Division of Tourism that is now going to be reactivated because it actually existed a couple years prior, when we had some negative incidents with visitors on our island. And in most recent times, I'm happy to report that we've not had a lot of negative incidents against visitors on the island for a long period of time. But in light of what is taking place, we recognize that people would visit the destination, would have natural concerns, they would want to get information, they would want to know where they should go, where are the safe places to hang out, you know, what kind of activities they could still participate in, and even if they want to report an incident, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an incident of crime only, but if they want to report some situation or they want to get some additional information about a matter, that we are now setting up this unit, and that's a mandate that has been given by the Chief Secretary for us to reinstitute this unit under the Division of Tourism, where we are going to pull all of our partners together, not just Division of Tourism personnel, but the tourism-oriented police, translators in this space, because we have a number of visitors who may not be English speaking as their first language, so we have to make sure that we have persons on standby who can translate if we need, persons who are attached to social services if there are any types of interventions needed on that side, you know, different types of stakeholders to ensure that at any point in time, our visitors can come to the island and feel as if they're being taken care of, especially in light of what is taking place. Certainly ensuring that even the interactions that are taking place between officers and between members of the national security apparatus, people walk away feeling as if they have had a wholesome interaction. So we've discussed a number of those initiatives, but the purpose of this meeting is to also get from you, what is the reality of the situation? Are we seeing significant negative fallout in terms of the amount of cancellations? I've heard of a few, but this is an opportunity for us to get an idea of where we're truly at so that we can hammer home some of the things that we have to do. One, in terms of the negative advisories, certainly running some campaigns to keep Tobago front of mind. Two, beefing up some of our domestic marketing, because the reality is that Trinidad by numbers is our largest source market, and this might be the time for us to ensure that there's not too much negative fallout on the domestic side. So where we may get some on the international side, we can beef up our numbers on the domestic. And thirdly, this might be an opportunity for us to launch in some new markets who have expressed interest, and we have seen the numbers coming in from places like Venezuela, Puerto Rico via cruise, Guyana even. These are some of the markets that we are starting to look at in terms of these visitors already have relationships with Trinidad and Tobago. They always come in, it's very famous for cricket, they come in, the Venezuelans are here and whatnot. Let's see if we can continue to sell Tobago as a destination that they can come to. So even while we're managing the fallout from our mid and long haul destinations, that we're seeing where we can get some more visitors from shorter haul destinations. So I'll leave it at that, and we will continue the conversation. And we will see if together we can come up with some very proactive solutions to ensure that Tobago can thrive in the midst of another challenge. But I think challenge builds resilience, and I think we qualify for resilience awards by this time based on how many things that we have been going through together and surviving and thriving.
Thank you very much, Secretary Boris. So as you are preparing your questions, because we want you to shoot straight and quickly, I asked Eli to just give us some perspectives from the TTPS side of things.
Good afternoon, Chief Sec. Good afternoon, all persons present. I am Senior Superintendent Eli, in charge of the Tobago Policing Division. Now, 2024 has been a challenging year for the police in Tobago. We have been able to implement certain strategies during the course of the year that has led to results at the end of the year, which I am fairly pleased with. We saw some significant decline in the numbers of criminal activities on the island. We have had some measure of success in terms of the narcotic seizures and the firearm seizures on the island. I think I get a sense from the public that the public is feeling a lot safer now than they were at the beginning of 2024. And again, that is in part based on the strategies employed in collaboration with the Defense Force and other arms of security. As it relates specifically to tourism, we have a unit called the Tourism Oriented Policing Unit, captioned as TOP. They are a unit that is specifically assigned to deal with issues dealing with tourists. Whenever we have large amounts of tourists on the island, that unit is augmented by the regular police officers. So for the last year, we have not had any reports of attacks on tourists, right? So we had one incident where a villa was broken into. That incident was treated with immediately arrested and charged and taken before the court. But besides of any attacks on any tourists on the island, and again, that is based on the strategies employed by the security forces on the island. So again, I am pleased with where we are. I am pleased with the direction that we are going, and I want to give you all the assurance that together the national security apparatus on the island will continue to do what is necessary to keep crime and criminality under control and have your tourists feel safe when they are in Tobago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eli. So we will field your questions. I will chair this question and answer segment. I ask that we keep our questions focused on the Tobago space, on how we are managing the security issues in Tobago, what challenges you may or may not have within your sector, especially as it's tourism related. But I can't stress enough that we're not just doing this because we care about our visitors. We care about our residents more than anything else. And so we're doing this first and foremost for our residents, ensuring that you are safe. Because when all are we safe, anybody that come here gonna be safe. That has to be the underpinning of what we do. The Tobago model of tourism is about inviting the visitor to come to Tobago and live like a Tobagonian, to come here and to be what we are and live what we are and enjoy what we are. And so what we want to ensure is that what we are, safe, peaceful bunch of people. And so wherever you are in the world, coming to Tobago is indeed a safe, peaceful option for you. That is the philosophical underpinnings. So you just show by raise of hands and we'll have a microphone. So I see Mr. Gray, hand is up first. So I saw Mr. Gray's hand first. And so we'll tell the lady first. Ladies first, that's correct. So we have Mrs. Maria John first. So you could stand where you stand. Should she stand? Yeah, stand where you are. And give your question and perhaps reintroduce yourself to the audience that might be looking on.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Maria Yip-John. I'm the Vice President of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association. Very quickly, I would just like to ask, because it's been almost 2 weeks of the SOE, and with all the measures that are being put in place with the TTPS and whatever other security bodies, are we seeing any tangible results in achieving the objectives of the SOE?
Well, I'm glad that question is not for me. So, because if I answer that will put me in trouble. So, let me ask either Subero will answer that question, yes.
First, let me say who I am. I am Oswin Subero. I am the Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of the Eastern Division and Tobago. So it's not just the Tobago space. What we have seen in Tobago over our operational period that has taking place from the 30th, we've been able to detain persons, we've been able to charge persons, and we've been able to recover the number one thing that we wanted, firearms. Only on the last day of the year we recovered 2 firearms. So it's our drive in 2025 to remove as much firearms as possible off the island of Tobago. Firearm and narcotics are the problem in Tobago. And our plan is specific to addressing those issues. We are going hard at those issues, and we expect to see a greater level of peace through that. In relation to the tourist side, we intend to boost the person that we have at TOPS, and we intend to bring in some training so that young officers will have a better idea how to interact with the tourists and to even make it easier for communication, right? We have the barcode system that we use when the tourists come. So they just take a picture of it and take all the information up that they need for the island is on it, right? But we have been seeing some success, some we cannot discuss here, but we continue and we look forward to the Parliament making a decision on how long the state of emergency would be in effect.
Thank you. Mr. Gray?
I have to stand, right?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, all, and Happy New Year to all and sundry. How important do you think a camera system throughout the island or in the areas, how important do you think that is in the systems of fighting crime and criminology on the island?
Inordinately important.
And who would you think responsible for implementing such those things?
Right, so the use of cameras on the island as a crime fighting strategy, and not just Tobago. Any jurisdiction you go to, they depend on camera technology to be able to keep crime under control. In fact, in some jurisdictions you go to, they have smart cities and smart communities where the minute you walk through a train station, the airport, you have facial recognition technology, the use of AI and other mechanisms. Drone technology is another one being utilized. And so Trinidad and Tobago may be a little behind the rest of the world in that regard. So it's extremely important. So that answers your first question. And can in fact be a tool or an asset in crime fighting here on Island and Tobago and in Trinidad and Tobago. The question of whose responsibility it is to implement those, well, it's twofold. The 6th schedule under which we operate says that national security is a sole function of the central government. So it's not in my purview or the THA's purview where national security is concerned. So if we're talking about camera systems strictly to be utilized by the TTPS, the regiment, or the national security apparatus, by law, that responsibility for installation, maintenance, upkeep, and monitoring lies with the Ministry of National Security or whomsoever the cabinet of the day delegates such responsibility to. That's where the responsibility lies. Can the THA have any input where cameras are concerned? Yes, the THA can. It just won't be directly in national security. We do have some systems that we are implementing through TEMA as part of our preparation for emergency response, because in Tobago emergency response, we are prepared for anything from hurricane, earthquake, oil spill, tsunami, shark attack, terrorist activity, you name it. TEMA is being prepared for it, because our best response for an emergency is to be prepared. And so as part of that preparation, the THA is embarking on a policy whereby our public safety and security mechanism and department, as pitched 2 budgets ago two budget proposals ago, that is being built out under TEMA as we speak. And part of that will include the use of camera technology. So should all things happen well, it will mean that Tobago will benefit from two sides of the coin. From national security, the ministry and the cabinet and the parliament will supply. That provides a layer of safety and security. And from the Tobago House of Assembly perspective, through TEMA, we provide an additional layer. So you can look at the Tobagonian in the not so distant future, having at his or her disposal access to that kind of technology, being part of their day-to-day security operations. But to come back to your first question, it is a critical component in crime fighting. And I think if you ask Eli or Subaru or any attorney, where they will point at though is whether or not we have the requisite legislation updated to be able to utilize the camera footage in the most efficient way in our court system. I am not a lawyer. I don't think we have a lawyer in-house at the moment, but from my last checks, even to go to court with the camera system, it still requires having human beings there to testify and certain corroborating evidence. So we need to probably update our laws to meet with the times, but outside of that, yes, it's absolutely critical a feature. And you, in your industry, not to belabor the point, you have cameras at all of your properties, not so? Nobody's building an Airbnb now, much less a hotel, without having camera systems there. I want you to be prepared at a moment's notice to provide the TTPS and or responsible agency with the footage. I hope that when we are trying to solve crimes, that you are not telling them, go get a warrant and come back, right? When you know to yourself that something might have happened on your property, or someone might have stayed at your property that was complicit in crime. And so your patriotism should kick in to the point where the TTPS comes. They're not coming by you to find out who come by a hotel with a wife or a husband that not theirs. That's not what they're coming for, right? So when they come by you and come by your property, it's because they're coming as part of an investigation for something serious. So your patriotism should kick in, that you're not even waiting on them to go and get a warrant to come back, that you are assisting them in their investigation, because the core of safety and security has to be community. They can't be the only ones responsible. The whole community is responsible. You are a crime fighter too. Yes, you might be a hotel manager. You might own a restaurant. You might own a bar. You might be a tour guide. But you are a crime fighter as well. And so the question is, when does that kick in for me? And how do I contribute to the crime fighting effort? So I'm glad you asked the question, Mr. Gray, because you, with all your fancy cameras protecting your property, can be assets to the crime fighting. And I want you to willingly participate and work along with the TTPS. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Curtis Williams, the chairman of the Tobago division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. My question is that Tobago's first murder was a child, a minor. And Chief, I want to know how you feel about that, because we at the business community, we didn't feel comfortable about that at all. And I want the police to tell me how they feel about it as well too. Thank you.
Let me allow the police to go first. I mean, I could answer the question off the top. I taught for 7 years, and what I saw was a child that could have easily been a student of mine. The age she was at, fifth form student, he should be preparing for examination, whole life in front of him, potential not yet birthed. So that's just all just killed in a moment, shut down. Stifled, never to be had again. and Tobago stand to lose, because we lose part of our future productive sector. And so you could never feel well. And I got the news of it while I was at church on Sabbath, and I'm sitting in there and I couldn't think about anything else the pastor was saying, because I'm wondering how this young boy got involved. And then on the top of that, by the time I got to him, I'm seeing videos that purports to show the young man brandishing guns and throwing up gangs signs and so on, which says to me that we have a problem. But it's an opportunity for me to say quite frankly that here we have a young man for whom we provide free education, free transportation, free meals, free teaching, free access to the examinations. In other Caribbean territories, you have to pay for their CXCs. That is free. We provide free books. We provide free extracurricular activities. We provide free desks, free everything. Free everything. And still a life of crime got to this young man, which negates the position that some in this space makes, that we perhaps need to give more free things, give more, and that will stop the crime. Clearly, the THA could give everything, and we could still end up in this place if people don't take personal responsibility, if parents don't parent, if communities don't guide strictly their youngsters. And so it speaks to the fact that all of us have failed, that we can end up with so many young people. But let me allow Eli to perhaps talk about whether or not we are seeing younger people involved, what ages we are looking at, and perhaps what are some of the mechanisms to treat with that.
Well, there's a trend, not just in Tobago, but in Trinidad and Tobago, which I can speak of in terms of where we see the gangs targeting or focusing more on young persons. In the Tobago space, we have information of persons as young as 12 years old involved in that sort of activity, right? And this is becoming even more and more popular. The primary age for inclusion in gangs is early teenage, from early teenage until 22, 23, 24, that kind of age group. That's the age group where you get inculcated in the gangs. And it is becoming more and more focused on the younger ages, right? That particular 15-year-old, he wasn't what we will call a squeaky clean young man. He would have been involved in certain activities. I wouldn't want to mention it, but he would have been involved in certain activities, unfortunately. And at that age, a young man is very impressionable. So you imagine you take a firearm and place it in the hands of a young, impressionable guy who may not be thinking the way he should be thinking, and that creates a certain sense of false power in that young guy, right? And this is why the gangs are focusing on persons of that age group, right? Because they are very impressionable, right? And they can be easily misled. And parenting is important, huh? And we, as I think most of us here are parents, yes. And you know they say you rarely see your child if you hide and look at them, right? If you hide and look at your child, you may not believe that is your child, right? So I know a lot of parents are doing what they are supposed to be doing, right? But still, the underworld are getting to our children. So we as parents and we as adults, we need to do a little bit more. We need to do something more, because obviously what we're doing is not enough. And we don't need to just focus on our own children. We need to focus on the neighbor's children, the children of the village. Right? Focus back on the days when it takes a village to raise a child, right? And we need to look out for each other's children, because like I say, you only see your child in its true flight if you hide and look at them. You will be surprised to know that is your child. Yeah? So again, at my closing, I'm saying that the age groups, the age are lower age groups are being targeted for inclusion in these activities. and it's a serious concern for the police, right? So we, in Tobago, we have the community policing unit, right, that are focused heavily on the schools, right? And in each school in Tobago, an officer is assigned to each school in Tobago to treat with issues like that. But yet, it's still not enough, right? So again, we're asking you to do what you can to assist us. So we'll assist each other, basically.
Yes. Mr. Ted Sunshine himself.
Thank you. Now, prior to coming, good afternoon. Prior to coming here, it's as though you were on a fly on the wall. We had a similar kind of conversation amongst ourselves in this room. Ted Sunshine, as the secretary says, the president of the Tobago Hospitality and Tour Operators Association. My company as well represents quite a number of international tour operators and visitors to Tobago. My contribution basically is more of a comment, or contribution rather, as opposed to a question, and just to give a little update as to where we are now. I have been communicating, and let me just say, first of all, I want to commend the secretary. I'm not just saying that now because of this situation. I want to commend the secretary because from the moment the SOE went out, we have a tourism stakeholder group, communication group, and we have been communicating with respect to Tobago's position to alert or to update our operators, and I have been doing that thus far. And the SOE, when it was announced, the initial concern was the timing made by the operators. The timing, it was made in the height of the booking season, where a number of persons were actually booking the vacation to Tobago and the Caribbean and so on. And we have seen initially some cancellations, but I'm happy to tell you that that has changed thus far, and we're seeing quite a number of bookings are now coming in. Sorry? I think what was said to us is that when SOEs or news like this are sent out, at the point in time, if somebody doesn't catch it whilst looking at the news, it is not newsworthy to stay in the news for that lengthy period of time. And so for persons who may go specifically looking for what is happening in a destination, they would not see it again. So this is what has been updated to us. And I'm happy to say that the bookings are returning. I think what we are doing now on the island, and I must commend the tops, and we need to see a little bit more vigilance where that is concerned. What is happening amidst the challenges that we have now on the island with the SOE is the 5-star experience that we give to our existing visitors. So yes, we're going to have some situations with roadblocks, we have not experienced that much, but is the continuous 5-star experience amidst the challenges that we give to our visitors now as we speak. The service, the warm smile, and those kind of things. This is what they're happy with now as we speak on the destination. So yes, I can happily tell you that the initial concerns, we had some cancellations, but that has changed thus far, and we're seeing a number or an increase in our bookings coming in. Going forward, though, is after the end of the SOE. What happens then? That would be the concern, to see exactly how the security apparatus is going to treat with, should in case this uptick in violence continue. So this is where the concern is with respect to the operators going forward. They're asking this question. All right, so this is my contribution.
Thank you very much. To your second question, a large part of the response to that will come from the cabinet, because the SOE is really a cabinet-driven policy. So the question of what happens post the SOE policy-wise and the direction the national security apparatus should take really and truly will come out of the central government as a matter of policy. To your first point, however, the issue of, we'll be happy to hear that we're getting a turnaround and that the bookings are returning. because I guess people are getting to realize that there aren't any curfews and that it's not as bad as they initially thought, or as the sensational headlines were. So we're happy for that. But in terms of, you spoke about the interaction with the visitors and the tourism-oriented police and the unit. I will want Eli or Suberu to tell us what are some of the mechanisms you put in place, especially when we have like a cruise ship in town and that kind of thing. Yes, you spoke about the fact that we have not had any incidents at all last year on a single visitor. But what are some of the extra efforts you put in place in and out of the SOE to ensure that the visitor to our shores, they are safe and that they have safe interactions on island?
Right. So there are several destinations across Tobago that are frequently visited by the tourists. And we are aware of those destinations. We are aware as to when there's an increased number of tourists on the island. We are aware of where the tours are going and when they are going. And we make use of that information to ensure that the security arrangements in those areas are adequate. Right? Additionally, we have the TOPS unit that you mentioned. We usually strengthen that unit based on the number of tourists on the island at the time. So you will see the bicycle patrols, and you will see all the other units from the Tobago Police being utilized to augment and strengthen and assist the TOPS in ensuring that the tourists are not targeted. Right? We implemented a barcode system, Mr. Sobera mentioned it earlier, where a tourist is just shown a barcode, he snaps it on his phone, and all his advice all information is transferred to his phone, right? So he has easy access anywhere he goes. Just open your phone and you can see all the telephone numbers for the stations and all the other advice that we think might be necessary to ensure their safety, right? So I think we are on top of that aspect of security as it relates to tourists, right? And so we will continue along that path.
Thank you very much. Any other question? We're seeing Acting CEO, Tital.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Sandra O'Tony. Okay, I want to start by saying that TTAL, or the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, remains committed to working with our industry stakeholders, both local and international, in terms of during this SOE period and beyond. And to date, we have taken action. We have had apart from the press release, it's a work in progress. We continue to work with our international stakeholders. We continue, updating them. We have some online presence. We have a communication plan in place. And what is critical is the Secretary speaking about working with the TOPS and the other stakeholders. That is something that I know has been around for a long time, but I hope that it could be, there could be an established protocol, a policy in the short, medium, and long term in terms of how we go about that. And I'm saying this within the context of recently when we had an issue with the British High Commission. They reached out to me to ask about who to call, that kind of thing. So I know there is that coordination between the hospital persons from the hospital. If a tourist comes and something happens, people must be very clear on the protocol in terms of who do we communicate with. So that should be in place. So I really welcome that and hope that, it will be a success. And I think it will be under our secretary here, who I know. We met as recent as Monday, and the entire discussion was in, moving forward within the context of the SOE. Two things I want to ask Mr. Suberu. You spoke about two of the main issues or incidences about drugs and firearms. So I am concerned now about our ports of entry. Has security been beefed up at our ports of entry in terms of the airport? I'm hoping to see the airport security people here and the Port Authority in terms of scanners has always been a problem. Are those things in place? Because they have to come in somewhere. Well, apart from the other illegal routes, you know where that is, in the sea and so forth. I have to be very careful. So I want to know that. And to the Chief Secretary, I would like to know what is the status of the Tobago Police. That police unit was supposed to strengthen the police services and our response to crime and security on this island. And that has been a conversation that has been around for years. What is the status of that? And I will rest for now.
Thank you.
Because I have so much to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tony. So we'll start with the question to you about what's the security like at our legal ports of entry. And when we through, I might be able to give some updates based on the conversations I have had about that, but I'll allow you to go first. We do have here in the audience as well from the Coast Guard, Sergeant Rowley. So Sergeant Rowley, after I hear from Eli, I would want you to probably share with us how you all are managing the marine space that encircles the island of Tobago. I mean, we are island, which means we are surrounded by water, right? So the Coast Guard will be critical, and then I'll come in on the back end.
Okay, I will answer the question. I cannot speak for the Port Authority or the Airport Authority, but we have increased our operations both in Trinidad and in Tobago by having exercises on the port. Right? I too have participated in the exercises, so we do it at both ends. We have also increased our view of the persons who travel back and forth. So we have improved the staff that we had looking at that previously. So we will continue to do our part by looking for it, but referring to the airport and the port security, I can't speak for them.
All right, let me hear from Sergeant Rowley.
Well, at this time we have a vessel, 010, and right now it's doing patrol, right? To and from, like from Scarborough to Pigeon Point to Mount Irvin and to Buku. And right now, so far, the patrol has been good. And we're doing some inter-patrol with police and army throughout the villages like Charlesville, Plymouth, and Scarborough. And so far, the patrol has been good, and the public has been happy to see the faces around Scarborough and all over the villages. And right now, Carnival is coming up, and I know they want to beef up with the security. So I know that the Army and Coast Guard be working hand in hand.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's an opportunity to bring McKenna Captain McKenna into the conversation. The Tobago House of Assembly, at great cost, contrary to the 5th schedule, is in support of the regiment by helping to provide assets, in particular vehicular assets, for your operations. And I know you have been joining the TTPS along with the Coast Guard for joint patrols both east and west of Tobago. But also that now during the state of emergency, you now also have powers of arrest that you won't have on an ordinary day. So perhaps share with the stakeholders how that is going, how the patrols are going, and how you are going to even increase your presence around the island.
Right. Good afternoon all. So under the state of emergency, the regiment would have given the powers of arrest, right? And you will notice that utilizing the asset that was loaned to us or handed over to us by the Tobago House of Assembly, you will see a lot of us visual. You'll see us in areas operating alone. So you will see, like, four-man teams operating through the villages, using swerving lights, that kind of thing, and we will be in support of the TTPS. Additionally, we will do some operations alone in terms of stop and search, and just to show that have our presence in the villages to create that level of safety. So yes, we are operating in terms of in the various villages, and you will see us more, not in support of the TTPS as well as alone, right? So that is basically it right now under the state of emergency.
And to answer your question, your final question, Mrs. Tony, well, two parts. One, the last meeting I had with Minister Hines at the waterfront last year. In that meeting, and I attended that meeting, the Chief Administrator was there, Advisor Richards was also there, and so they can bear me witness. The Port Authority indicated that they will advance in their procurement process to get scanners for the port in Scarborough. They indicated at that meeting that they did not have the capacity in terms of space to install the scanner at the port in Port of Spain, so they were going to install the scanner at the port in Scarborough. That meeting, I can't remember the exact date of that meeting, but I'm sure it is more than 6 months since we last had that meeting at the waterfront. And in that meeting was chaired by the then lone Minister of National Security, Minister Hines. They did not have two ministers at the time. We had about 2 PSs in the room, and we had every single arm of national security represented, including the air and sea port. And that's what was told to us. So we could seek an update to see where the port is at, where that is concerned. As a matter of fact, at one time, the THA was in discussions about just acquiring the scanner ourselves. And we realized that there was some pushback. So they said that they're advancing the procurement, so we're waiting on getting that installed in Tobago. The question about the Tobago Police Unit, not a new idea, first mooted by former Chief Secretary Orville London. The Prime Minister is on record last year, which is a rarity, as being in agreement with this Chief Secretary about the usefulness of a Tobago Police Unit. And he is on record as saying that it just requires minor adjustments in law to allow for it, in the same way minor adjustments were made to move us from 12 seats to 15 seats. I think the minor adjustments can be made. But he is on record as saying those legal adjustments are being considered by the Cabinet, and it's something that they will want to carry before the Parliament. That will be required in order to allow for us to have a localized police force that will augment the strength of the TTPS here on island. What I cannot say from this position is whether or not it is a priority over the few months remaining of this government. So I can't speak to whether or not it's on the legislative agenda between now and whenever the next general election is called. But the Prime Minister is on record last year as being in agreement with the Chief Secretary that that is a useful mechanism which will allow us to use the localized force for what might be the mundane everyday tasks like traffic management and so forth. Even some of the extra duty work at parties and so on, and freeing up the police time for significant intelligent gathering and also for responding. I think we have another question. Let's go ahead.
It's not really a question, but I think I should have mentioned, because I and all keep talking about SOE and SOE. But as recent as Monday, I know the director and his team, marketing team, had meetings with our international reps, communication, AMG, and for communication. And what they have advised is that let us continue focusing, just don't focus on any SOE. Let us continue to focus and market Tobago as a safe place, keep reinforcing safety of our visitors, So keep doing positive, making positive statements. Try to avoid the word SOE. I forget to mention that, and I think it's really important to say that at this forum. Let us just keep the messages positive. But, and I'm going to say this, that in our meeting on Monday, Secretary, that was also the topic about keeping it safe. So instead of saying SOE, SOE, because it will just remain, let us just keep it positive. Keep Tobago safe, and I love it. Safety starts with us, and once we are safe, our visitors will be safe. Once we appreciate, we as Tobagonians appreciate the value of tourism and what it means for us as Tobagonians, then everybody would more or less be on the same page to play their part in ensuring that our local people here are safe and our visitors are even safer. That is my contribution for this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Using the term SOE. So
enhanced security measures.
So we'll just say enhanced security measures. I like that. We have enhanced security measures. That's all. That's all.
Mrs. Ortoni, thank you for the comment, because that underscores the need for us to continue to communicate the positive stories coming out of the destination, and the fact that the media plays a very important role. I know that the headlines are focused on the politics of the situation, but the reality is that Tobago has much more to lose maybe than Trinidad coming out of this. And this is the opportunity for the stakeholders to really look at it, because now we have to not just oversell but over-deliver, because every single visitor who comes across an ad for Tobago or sees us at a trade show, we spend a lot of money, but the money that we spend is a drop in the bucket compared to other destinations. So that one negative report does more damage to our product than any other destination who can simply buy all the free press and buy all the positive publicity to counteract any negative in this space. We now have this job to do in terms of, as I said, overselling and over-delivering on the product. I could tell you that Tuesday I spent the entire day with Mr. Alex Cassidy, who is one of the better known TikTok influencers who goes out there selling Tobago wherever he goes. And we took him to places that he has not visited in all the years that he's been coming to Tobago since he was 6 years old. And he was completely blown away by not just how beautiful the destination is, but how warm and friendly the people are, how accessible it is to sites and attractions. People pay nothing to visit the best of what we have to offer. And these are some of the things that we have to continue to communicate. Certainly, I know we talked about taking the Taste of Tobago show on the road again, because for us, it's about one, we have to continue to solidify our numbers in the domestic space. We don't want to lose any of our domestic, visitors. We want to make sure that Trinidadians can still come, take a few days from work, come to Tobago, take a load off, go to the beach, enjoy Sunday school, bonfire in Castara, whatever it is, as well as showing our international visitors that, hey, we understand you might be concerned about safety, but we've got you. Tobago is still a love. You will come here, you will still feel as if you're family, you'll still go to the places that you're familiar, you'll still see the same familiar faces. You might just see some handsome men in uniform. Just make sure you have your ID with you, so in case they ask you a question, you could say, well, I'm John Smith, I'm visiting from the UK for 3 weeks, I'm staying at Grafton. But to just ensure that they understand that what is happening in this space is to ensure that the people who live here are safe, and once the people who live here are safe, then our visitors definitely will be very safe. So we will continue to put out all the positive stories about the destination in the space, not just with our local influencer campaign, but utilizing our partners through the Caribbean Tourism Organization and our other international marketing reps to show them that Tobago is still a love, and that we will get through this period, that we will ensure that we will support the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service as well as the other national security stakeholders in there, because there's a lot of work to do. We have to take our communities back, and this is an opportunity for Tobago to reset. When Mr. Williams, you asked the question about how we felt with that news of that young boy being killed, he went to school with my daughter. And when she got the news, she couldn't stop crying. And the thing is that The images that we saw was not that child in school. And a child in school is different to a child on the street. And she was telling me stories that the last time she saw him was the last day of school. And he was telling her, Tati, give me $1, Gail, give me $1. And, you know, and you can't reconcile the image of this little boy with the image of what you see. But they're one and the same. And my question and my concern and my thought sitting in government as a parent is, when did we get this far gone? And what are we doing to pull it back? And it is under these conditions, this situation that we are faced with, this is our opportunity to pull it back. This is the opportunity for us to take charge of our communities again. This is the opportunity for the church to get out of the building and go back to helping to heal the families. This is the opportunity for us to take a look at what is going on in our schools and plan some interventions there. How are we incorporating our community, our village councils and our NGOs and our sporting groups? How are we helping our young people to get more and more involved in positive activity? The role models, the TTPS this weekend, they have invited the Soca Warriors to come and do some clinics this weekend, and I encourage all Tobagonians, if you have not heard of it, the 1996 Soca Warriors will be in Tobago this weekend on Saturday at Shore Park. They'll be doing a coaching clinic for young persons from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 6 o'clock the Soca Warriors will be playing an exhibition match against members of the Tobago division of the police service, and I encourage everybody to come out with their families.
All the better with it.
All the better with the truth. A little embarrassing. But I mean, it's activities like these and encouraging our families to get together and come out, positive activities. And 3 of the members of the Soca Warriors I found out today are actually serving members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And we need to put more positive male role models in front of our kids. You know, people like Mr. Alan Stewart, we need to take him into schools and let him give lectures, let him talk about his life. You know, people like Ken Jones, people like Mr. Williams. We want to see the men step up in a very big way to help take back our communities, because where the family is failing, we need to ensure that we have positive male role models that are emerging in this time to also help combat what we're experiencing.
Excellent. So I think we have a final question from Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah, just quickly. What position you're playing ASP? Goalie? Goalkeeper?
Is it goalie? Or right off? Or right off?
Left off.
Or right off, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that in spite of all of this, I said before, is the 5-star experience amidst the challenges that we have to continue to give. I know we spoke about this SOE is targeting or to bring some semblance of order back into the community with respect to the activities, gang activities. But in terms specific to tourism, there are areas where people go and socialize, for example, the Sunday school in Buku and the western end where we have on the weekends. In fact, during the week now, I think you have a lot of the Jade Monkey and, you know, that area down there. We have a lot of visitors will tend to go and socialize and so on. I'm not sure if you already took into consideration increasing just the presence of officers in those 2 specific areas where we have a lot of visitors will tend to go out and enjoy the nightlife, just to ensure that that safety continues. And like, or should I use the term, the enhanced security measures? Yes. Yes. All right, which we'll have to table now as one of our watchwords or whatever it is, right? So just those 2 areas, if you took into consideration to enhance the presence of the security.
Yes, and not just those 2 areas, but all areas where we identify as being utilized by persons for socializing.
Thank you.
So the entire strip down in Compoint, Pleasant Prospect area, Pigeon Point, Beach,
yes.
Castara up in the north, Charlottesville all up in the northeast, and so on and so on. Just some updates. So we have some updates in real time about the scanner. So that meeting was held in April last year. They have in fact procured 2 Buster K10G density scanners. This is for vehicles as well. They are for Tobago. They're not currently in use, as 50 officers are still to be trained. So they have the scanners, They're not currently being used. They just have to train 50 officers, and then they'll be able to utilize it. But they have, in fact, procured the 2 Buster K10G density scanners, which are to be used for vehicles as well. They have the scanners. They just have to do the training component, and then they could do the implementation. And that certainly will bring an additional layer of security. Because I know you hate it when you're coming off the port and you see the police there with their dogs and they're going through every vehicle one by one. It slows the thing down. With the use of the scanner, it means that the scanner could be used as a first measure, and then you could extract the suspicious ones, and then you do an even more detailed search so that it's efficient at the same time. So I did say that this is a mini town hall, and I'm not trying to replicate what we do in the community in terms of time. I'm sure we are well beyond the 30 minutes I anticipated. But the note we should end on came out of something Secretary Boris said, when she said Tobago is still alive. At the end of the day, Tobago is still alive. What makes us beyond ordinary is that we are still alive. You can't go to many destinations in the world and find love being so ubiquitous that you could almost slice it. Tobago is still alive. You can't go to many destinations in the world where you could just randomly walk into somebody's home on a Sunday, as you did last Sunday in Pembroke, as you will do next Sunday in Palatuvere, and be a complete stranger, eat from the pot and still get something to tote home. Tobago is still alive. And we should not give that up for a minority that seeks hatred instead of love. From my own perspective and personal perspective, love always wins. Even in the dark moments that it looks as if hatred and violence will win, love will always eventually win at the end of the day. And Tobago, being a significantly large Christian community, must have an appreciation for that, because there was a time that the world thought that sin and evil will win. Just could not find the Messiah. And think of all of those people who came before the Messiah. We're coming out of Christmas. All them people who came before the Messiah hoping to see this Messiah died without seeing the Messiah face to face. All the Noahs and the Abrahams and so on died never seeing the Messiah. But eventually love was birthed and love won. So love will win. So Tobago is still alive. We're not giving that up. We're holding on to that for dear life. We assure you in the tourism sector that Tobago, being the island of love, will win. That we will continue on the trajectory for growth, because we have been seeing growth in our numbers year on year, every year, and we expect this year to be larger than last year and the previous years post-COVID. So we expect that to happen, and we have to stick to it. You are very much a part of the crime fighting initiative. I want to express gratitude to the members of the national security apparatus. And you know, I am always first in line to be critical when that is needed, but I also want to be first in line to express gratitude as is needed. So ACP Subero, Senior Superintendent Eli, I can say that we have seen significant improvements since your commissioning on this island. So clearly the change in leadership has worked well for us. I want to also Sergeant Rowley, not just to you, but also to Naval Lieutenant Valentine, express our gratitude, because you have worked diligently with us. Captain McKenna, I think we may have to beg the COO to keep you in Tobago, because you all have been there with us through Hurricane Beryl. You were there, oil spill, you were there, shark attack, you were there, and you're here with us on the crime fighting initiatives and working. I'm sure your men are happy to leave Camp Signal Hill and be out in the field and be active and to be mobile with the assets that the THA is assisting with. So we express gratitude there as well. Of course, Marlon Charles, please express our gratitude to the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. I know we still have as outstanding getting you guys back to Scarborough from where you are in Canby. And perhaps that's something we could have further discussions on and see how we could push you in that direction. As well as I know there has been an intent to have some sort of substation going north. So those two projects that I know we have to work on. But we thank you, notwithstanding the limited assets you all have. I'm seeing on videos your men falling out of fire trucks and so on. But notwithstanding, you all continue to work and push. And of course, to you, the remaining stakeholders, we must say thanks. The Chamber of Commerce, we have the Hotel and Tourism Association, the Hospitality and Tour Operations, TTAL, and we have both Mrs. Tony and Mr. Antoine here. Thank you for your efforts. Chief Administrator and your staff, including Director Stewart, Ms. Degazor, thank you very much for your efforts. Advisor Richards, many perhaps don't know that you were formerly a member of the TTPS and that Mr. Eli here is your batch. So you should be playing football on Sunday, on Saturday. And maybe if you were still there, you might be wearing khaki too. You never know, right? Or maybe you can be throwing your hat in the ring for Commissioner of Police. We don't know, but we thank you for your efforts. And we also had with us today Sergeant Carter. Carter, I think I'm meeting you for the first time, but quite pointed in our earlier discussion. So thank you all, and those who viewed of course, thank you, Secretary Boris. Dr. B as well, thank you as well, Deputy Chief Secretary, for your efforts. And for those who joined us live for the conversation and the stakeholders, you heard from the security apparatus on the island. You heard the questions that were asked. You got some clarity on some of the issues. You know the direction that we are going security-wise and the impact it can have on your sector in tourism. And we are looking forward to continue partnering with you. So until the next time we have a conversation, Tobago is still alive. Have a good afternoon.